Hi, my name is Mariazzi, and welcome to the second Apollo Studio tutorial. In this video, we will go over how specific devices work and how they can be used to produce light effects. Apollo Studio comes with a selection of custom-designed, built-in devices. The previous tutorial video explains the common basics of working with devices. The first device we're going to have a look at is the group device. The group device contains a chain list. It's extremely useful as it allows you to process a signal in multiple different ways and then combine the result into one unique light effect. Chains are defined as an arbitrary set of devices. Their purpose is to aid in parallel processing of signals and to enable branching based on filters. As signals enter a group device, they are first greeted by the chain list. The chain list represents the branching point for incoming signal. Each parallel chain starts here, as an entry in the list. Chains can also be selected and have operations applied to them, similarly to devices. The output of all parallel chains is mixed together to produce the group's final output. If there happened to be another device following the group in its chain, it will now receive this output for further processing. It's also possible to have the group device automatically create key filters, page filters, or patterns when you create a new chain. The key filter device is used to only allow signals from some keys to pass through to the next device on the right. Its most common use case is to assign one or multiple specific keys to a group chain, thus it is found as the first device of most group chains. Click on the on-screen launchpad to select or deselect keys for filtering. Incoming signals with a position colored in blue will pass through the device, while other signals will be blocked. The move device changes the key associated with incoming signals by moving it relatively on the grid. It's most commonly used alongside the copy device to move the origin of a light effect from the button that was pressed to a different button. Drag the offset value to the relative position you want to move incoming signals to. In the dropdown at the bottom, it's possible to limit the range of moved signals to the main 8x8 grid of the launchpad, preventing your effects from bleeding into the side buttons. If the wrap checkbox is checked, signals that will land outside of the range of the launchpad will be wrapped back inside the range, making them appear on the opposite side of the grid. The paint device sets the color of incoming signals for further processing. Colors can be selected either using the visual color picker or by directly modifying the hex color code at the text box at the bottom. Since the Launchpad uses an 18-bit color palette with 6-bit for each RGB color channel, each channel is limited to a maximum value of 3F. The tone device modifies the color of incoming signals based on their original color by applying an HSV transformation. It's particularly useful when using a Launchpad Pro with velocity sensitivity enabled, as it lets you color your effect based on how hard you press the button. The saturation and value dials move the incoming saturation and value from the full range to the specified range on their dials, respectively. While the hue dial applies a delta to the hue of the incoming color. The copy device generates new signals based on the positions of the incoming signals. It's used to create basic shapes and movements relative to the original position. On the right-hand side, we find an offset list. Using the plus button, we can create additional offsets to be used as relative positions to generate the signals similarly to the move device. To remove an offset, simply click the X button next to the offset title. The way the offset list is used depends on the selected processing mode. When using static, the device will trigger additional signals at the specified relative positions immediately. When using animate, at the specified rate and gate, additional signals will be triggered one after another in succession. When using interpolate, at the specified rate and gate, additional signals generated by connecting direct lines between each offset will be triggered one after another in succession. When using random signal, out of the incoming signal and specified additional signals, one signal will be picked by random and triggered immediately. There is a possibility that the same signal is selected multiple times in a row for future incoming signals. When using random loop, at the specified rate and gate, one signal will be picked by random out of the incoming signal and specified additional signals, and triggered for each iteration until the incoming signal is released. The same signal will never be selected multiple times in a row. In the dropdown below, it's possible to limit the range of the generated signals to the main 8x8 grid of the launchpad, similarly to the move device, preventing your effects from bleeding into the side buttons. If the wrap checkbox is checked, signals that will land out of range will be moved back in range by wrapping them to the opposite side of the grid. The rate and gate dials control the speed of the effect when using animate, interpolate, or random processing modes. The rate is expressed in musical subdivisions, but can be switched to a millisecond value by right-clicking its dial. The gate functions as a simple multiplier for the rate. The whole device alters the length of incoming signals. It's useful when we want a particular effect to stay on the launchpad for a specific amount of time, regardless of when we release the key. The duration and gate dials control how long the signal should be held for. The duration is expressed in musical subdivisions, but can be switched to a millisecond value by right-clicking its dial. The gate functions as a simple multiplier for the duration. If the infinite checkbox is checked, it overrides the values of the duration gate dials and never releases the incoming signal. If the release checkbox is checked, the signal will be triggered when the signal is released, instead of immediately upon receiving it. These two options can also be used in conjunction with each other. The delay device holds any incoming signals for a specified amount of time before allowing them to go through. This is achieved by adding artificial latency to the incoming signals, which can slightly delay an effect or create an echo by triggering a second effect late. The duration and gate dials control how long the signal should be delayed for. The duration is expressed in musical subdivisions but can be switched to a millisecond value by right-clicking its dial. The gate functions as a simple multiplier for the duration. The pattern device is the single most powerful device in Apollo Studio. It allows you to design arbitrary shapes in a frame-based editor separate from the device view. To open the full editor, click the large pop-up button in the middle of the device. The basic idea of the pattern device is to store a frame list. The frame list is visible on the left side of the editor. Each frame consists of the launchpad light state for that frame and the duration value. When a signal is received, the frame list is played back and displayed on the launchpad for its assigned duration. Click the plus button to add more frames. Frames can be selected and have operations applied to them by right-clicking. They can also be dragged around and moved, even across different editor windows. You can also have Apollo copy the previous frame when adding a new one in the preferences. In the middle of the window, you'll find the Launchpad view, which displays the currently selected frame. By clicking and dragging, you can draw your frame here. To select a different color, use the color picker on the right-hand side or the color history below the color picker. To select the color from the on-screen Launchpad, hold Ctrl while clicking a button. To view your effect, either press the play button in the bottom left corner, which plays your effect isolated in the editor, or press the fire button, which plays your effect in the chain. The duration dial in the bottom left corner changes the duration for all selected frames. The reverse button reverses the order of all selected frames. The invert button visually inverts the selected frames. To quickly navigate the frame list while drawing an effect, you can use the arrow keys. Those will automatically add a new frame if you try moving outside the frame list. You can also manually insert and remove frames with the insert and delete keys, as well as the plus and minus keys respectively. Pressing enter will play your effect, while pressing shift enter will fire it. Instead of editing on screen, it's possible to take over a physical launchpad and use it exclusively as an editor. To start editing on your launchpad, select it in the top right corner. A launchpad can edit only one pattern at a time. Tap or slide on the launchpad to apply colors to the current frame. The launchpad can be automatically taken over when opening the editor in the preferences. Gestures are special button combinations you can do on the launchpad to control the editor directly while drawing. To use gestures, make sure they're enabled in the preferences. To execute a gesture, hold down any button on your launchpad and then consider the 8 buttons around the button you are holding. You can then tap the desired button while holding down the original button to execute the gesture. Left, previous frame. Right, next frame. Up, select color from color history. Down, draw on the mode light. Bottom left, remove frame. Top right, insert frame. Top left, play effect. Bottom right, fire effect. The gesture system allows you to create light effects on your launchpad without ever having to look at your screen. Below the frame list, we can find parameters that change how the pattern device plays back the effect. Changes to these are purely related to behavior in the chain and will have no direct impact in the pattern editor itself. While the pattern normally always plays back at a static absolute position, with the root key parameter, it's possible to enable relative playback based on the position of the incoming signal. The key selected as the root key will always match the signal entering the pattern by moving the frame around. If the wrap checkbox is checked, signals that will land outside the range of the grid are wrapped back inside the range, making them appear on the opposite side of the grid. The repeat style controls how many times the frames list will be iterated through during playback. The gate functions as a simple multiplier for the duration values of all frames. The dropdown below controls how playback will behave based on incoming signals. If mono is selected, the pattern plays once regardless of when the incoming signal is released, and receiving another incoming signal stops and restarts the pattern. If poly is selected, the pattern plays for each incoming signal independently, regardless of when the incoming signals are released. If loop is selected, The pattern repeats while the incoming signal is held, and receiving another incoming signal stops and restarts the pattern. If the infinite checkbox is checked, it overrides the duration value of the last frame and never releases the signals those frame outputs, making it render until cleared or drawn over with another effect. With the import button in the top left corner, it's possible to import a pattern from non-Apollo Studio file formats. There are two supported formats. The first one is a traditional MIDI clip file. Loading a MIDI clip will convert the notes found in a MIDI file to frames. For color resolving, the palette specified in the preferences will be used. And the second format is animated GIF image files. Loading an animated GIF image will stretch it to 10 by 10 pixels and load the frames into the editor. Therefore, it's a good idea to trim your GIF to a square before loading. The colors are preserved as in the original image. The flip device flips any signals along a specified direction. It's commonly used to flip effects generated by copy or pattern devices, usually to prepare them for parallel output on a different launchpad. The available flip directions are horizontal, vertical, diagonal plus, or diagonal minus. If the bypass checkbox is checked, the original incoming signals will be outputted alongside the flipped signals. The rotate device rotates any incoming signals around the center of the grid for the specified angle. It functions very similarly to the flip device, so it's commonly used to rotate effects generated by other devices. The available angles are 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. If the bypass checkbox is checked, the original incoming signals will be outputted alongside the rotated signals. That's all for this video. In the next tutorial, I'll go over the rest of the devices that I wasn't able to cover in this video. Be sure to check out the Patreon link in the description if you want to support Apollo Studio. Thanks for watching. Bye!